UK has acquired a Nimitz-class carrier. What do we fill it with? What do we do with it? The carrier. 1 part snow crash raft. 1 part fuck yeah Sealand. 3 parts let's shoot some pirates. 1 part who put this kiddie pool on the flight deck. 2 parts why are the walls of the officer's mess covered in spray paint and semen. 3 parts why didn't anyone bring a QT 3.14 waifu-worthy girlfriends and girls? Captain's log. The carrier. Day 71. The crew are restless. It has been 3 days since we last sank a Somali pirate flotilla. We've been banned from making port of call in Madagascar, India, and the Scalys Islands, after our recent debaucherous visits there that left walls full of ND'd bullet holes and every prostitute within 20 miles of port seeking deportation or retirement. As the captain, I'm also concerned because our XO has recently fabricated a kilt out of a loaded nugget food stripper clips and wears nothing else. The XO has taken to defecating on the flight deck and smearing his feces into pictures of boobs, penises, or firearms. The crew are equally disturbed. I have taken reports from section chiefs that some of the enlisted sailors have begun wearing nothing but war paint and entertaining themselves by attaching unused machinery to the steam catapult just to launch it off the flight deck. Are we fighting the pirates, or have we become the pirates? Captain's log. The carrier. Day 185. Our unruly crew is beginning to work as a team, aside from a few accidental deaths from misuses of the steam catapult and falling off the flight deck while drunk. Operations are relatively safe and becoming more cohesive and effective. Earlier this week, in the interest of acquiring more full retard AKs to enjoy, we hosted His Eminent Excellence Kim Jong II on the carrier. His entourage included many military and science officers that were interested in carrier operations and wanted a full spec sheet and the opportunity for further study in the hopes of reverse engineering our beloved ship. On day 2, after a private meeting with our still kilt-wearing XO, 3 Mi-12s full of best Korean QT pies were greeted on the flight deck. The entire crew, aside from a skeleton element required for continuing ops, were treated to a very nice, impressively choreographed cutie pie drill and ceremony performance. Unfortunately, while we were secured, 6 full-armed Hind Ds and 5,500 Kalashnikovs and 500,000 rounds of ammunition, keeping the cutie pies would have required hosting Kim Jong II permanently to get him away from his fat prick with missiles son, Kim Jong-un. He intends to fake his death, apparently. Captain's log. The carrier. Day 262. Operation Crusade is in full swing, with the air support spearheaded by the Hind D gunship and other improvised air technical helicopters, which include a shithook in which our weapon officer somehow found a way to safely mount a short-barreled 150mm howitzer with twin Mk-19s on either side as door guns. This shithook surprisingly has the call sign DACA. We have enjoyed considerable success establishing a beachhead and maintaining air superiority over the various skinnies, bots, whatever else continues to harass and pirate the region. Recovering any trophies or artifacts from the Black Hawk Down incident is also of considerable interest in our second-line ground team. Have weaponeer detachments to recover and salvage any technical and support arms we can find. Captain's log. The carrier. Day 265. Operation Crusade has been a resounding success. All operational pirate skiffs and ships have either been captured or scuttled. The military infrastructure and warlord elements in the port coast of Somalia have been decimated. We've established a landslide base with a contingent to maintain port security and act as a new base of operations. Within a couple of weeks, I hope to gradually increase the contingent on land. But that will depend on their ability to stop taking pictures and making a meme competition for jungle tits and National Geographic titties that apparently abound absolutely unrestrained in their region. I've placed our senior Russian expat, Major Ivan Cheshinkov, in command of the contingent, as his seaside manner has deteriorated greatly and his typically coherent rantings against the desecration of Russian and Warsaw-Pact firearms frequently turn into Russian-accented incoherent screamings in high seas, whenever his shipboard vodka still malfunctions or produces a questionable batch of hooch. I've ordered the still moved landside as a result. Captain's log, the carrier, day 289. Following the repeated AARs on the Operation Crusade, our higher leadership meeting at the drunken insistence of our XO expanded to include outlining a plan for, as the XO inimicably put it, a phase motherfucking deuce to Operation Crusade. Several potential targets and AOs were discussed, but leading our prospects of both the opportunity for unmitigated violence and visiting said violence upon the most devastating example of humanity, Iran prevailed as the leading choice over Los Angeles in the heated debate. We sail for the Persian Gulf after vodka supplies are replenished on board, and we get our newly acquired Typhoon-class submarine christened and fully operational to serve as a forward observer for the main invasion fleet. The crew's morale could not be higher, as following the successful Operation Crusade, a nightly karaoke competition in the main mess hall has gained a great deal of popularity. Though the fleet-wide broadcast of the karaoke contest resulted in numerous and suspiciously deliberate faults found in shipboard's PAs after a South Korean gunner's mate performed a rendition of Mariah Carey's Touch My Nugget. Captain's log, the carrier, day 291. Corrections to day 289's entry. I suspiciously used the word morale, and accidentally instead of morale. Not sure if spell check accident, and not sure if my PC's becoming ironically self-aware. Morales, as an overall concept, are quite nebulous within the fleet, and even on board the carrier. I hear reports from section chiefs where crew will come to blows, as in the swinging of fists kind, not the applied with lips and vacuum kind. Then debating whether or not the traps among the crew are the better lays than the trans members of the crew. Strangely, the inclusion of the natural XX chromosome females in the discussion was never noted. The XO laughed when I mentioned it, and loudly proclaimed, "There are no girls in the flotilla." That reminded him of our enduring search for at least one authentic girl for the sake of affirmative action. His Chesenkov vodka-fueled retort was a rapidly delivered and very angrily sounding rant about ponies, glitter, and fucking oneself as he turned around to field strip his Krinkov right there on the bridge. That reminds me. Cans of 7 and 6 sardines and Zagnut bars are priority for our acquisitions officer. In other news, a container ship recently joined the flotilla after being declared unserviceable in its home port of Singapore, and it joined the fleet after absconding with its entire payload, which fortunately included dozens of Conexes of Red Bull, Mountain Dew, Basco-flavored Slim Jims, and women's lingerie. To celebrate its commissioning into the fleet, a cross-dressing commando lingerie show is planned in 3 days' time. Captain's log, the carrier, day 315. Operation Phase Motherfucking Deuce. Crusade has been a resounding success. By skirting the various no-fly zones, we've successfully mobilized forward infantry elements with our fleet of hind D's and shithooks, without a single operation lost in a deployment. A close call was had by the support shithook gunship Dhaka when the 105mm was fired at too low an altitude. Almost caused it to crash. When asked about the target engaged, the weapons officer, CW2 Krabs, insisted 105mm be used against the BMPs and other lightly mechanized Iranian kebab infantry. Resistance, because fuck those guys. Following the removal of much kebab, all personnel and assets were successfully extracted before Iranian F-14s and other aircrafts could be scrambled to intercept, and all safely arrived inside the safety zone of the carrier's CWIS system. Tragically, despite all attempts to the contrary, we could not capture an Iranian F-14 for our resident's top gun. Capturing an Iranian F-14 remains a primary objective of Operation Phase motherfucking Deuce of the Crusade. By day 320, we hope to be remobilizing to travel through the Suez Canal and commence removal of Albanian and Siberian kebab in Phase 3. Captain's Log, the carrier, day 346. After nearly a full years at sea, the crew have finally become a cohesive, efficient machine. With the XO's new leadership, we now collect all the ship's human waste in a tank that can feed any of our 4 specifically adapted water cannons on the side of the vessel to repel attempted boardings without wasting ammunition. The lead weapons officer has also developed a rotary point defense weapon from 8 nugget barrels that is fed nugget food via PKM belts that became plentiful after the hugely successful landslide assault on some random Somali warlord's beachside port. The constant influx of volunteer crew have permitted me to become rather selective of who we take on board. To my absolute surprise, there's actually at least one non-trans female on K that requested duty here as radar officer. Every other female on board is either trans or a trap. I'm not sure the crew has even noticed. Captain's Log, the carrier, day 377. The XO and Major Chesnikov have hatched the most daring and most meaningful operation ever proposed to the Commando Flotilla. The capture and subsequent on-board relocation of the glorious Murder Cube. Sympathetic assets in the area of the cube have been contracted, as this raid will require plainclothes civilians assisted for a total distraction if it has any chance to succeed. The crux of the plan relies on stealth and avoidance of contact and weapons usage. As ironic as that might seem, it is critical if we are to successfully abscond with the cube without attracting attention to our fleet. The fleet's new proximity to the US and Canada's eastern seaboard, and of course, prevent any attempts to reclaim the cube from us. 2 shithooks will be modified to transport the cube, to provide a primary and alternative helo for a main extraction. The shithook gunship, Dhaka, will support. A large rainstorm is approaching the location of the cube, and will fly through the rainstorm to mask the sounds of the shithooks as best as possible, and will extract the cube with carefully placed demolition charges on the ceiling of its prison. I pray to the cube's glory for the success of this mission. Alex Nex Aliyah. Captain's Log, the carrier, day 383. It is with the greatest regret and deepest sadness that I report the passing of one of our premier officers, Major Ivan Chesenkov. During the daring raid to recover the murder cube, Major Chesenkov led the raid himself. At the most critical part of the raid, the breaching charges to be used on the roof of the murder cube's prison experienced detonator failure. Major Chesenkov, with complete disregard for his own safety, jumped from the safety of his helicopter down to the roof by throwing his AK sling around the steel hoisting cables that were to be used to pull the piece of roof off the top of the building by Shithook 1, and using his AK and sling as a zip line. Knowing fully that his actions would kill him, he manually placed a det cord to each breaching charge, and set off the det cord by using one hand to repeatedly swing the buttstock of his AK-47 down on the end to initiate the blast, all the while singing the Soviet march. and emptying a 57-round drum on full auto from his AK-MSU, held in his other hand. Nothing remained of Major Chesenkov after the blast except for his AK-MSU and his AKS-74, both of which functioned perfectly and only needed to be dusted off and reloaded. Major Chesenkov's actions alone ensured the successful recovery of the cube. For his gallant sacrifice of his own life for the sake of the cube, we hereby posthumously present Major Chesenkov with our highest honor, the Order of the Cube. Public memorial service will be held on the flight deck at 1600, ship's time. Duty weapons and vodka from mass 21-gun salute required. Blanks not required, but somewhat encouraged. Captain's log, the carrier. Day 485. The carrier is now the proud flagship of the entire flotilla of crew that included several previously decommissioned Soviet nuclear submarines. To include much of their former Russian-speaking crew, we have 2 actual bilingual translation chiefs to ensure actual communications with the captains of those vessels. But communications amongst the enlisted is largely done by exchanging memes and pornography. I was recently made aware of the fact that the Typhoon-class sub recently christened the Communist has on board an entire complement of Soviet nuclear subsurface launchable ICBMs with warheads. For inexplicable reasons, the targeting computer is missing. I will work with our chief weapons officer to patch a suitable substitute with smartphones or a Garmin. The crew and the vessels of our flotilla have been universally banned from making port of call anywhere in the Western world, so we largely dock and resupply from various ports in the South Atlantic or Southern Indian Ocean. The trans-trap female contingent of the crew have been reassigned to our ex-Soviet missile cruiser, the Claptrap, and the captain of that vessel is having a Freddie Mercury look-alike contest to celebrate having painted every missile on board to mimic various ethnicities of penises. Piracy around Somalia has completely disappeared. The crew are hungry for action, so we're headed to the Black Sea via the Mediterranean and hopefully we'll encounter an Iranian flotilla on the way. The captain of the Claptrap has bid for and claimed the right of the first engagement of any hostile Haji vessels. Captain's log, the carrier, day 512. The UN and most of the developed world have expressed concerns about a recent reactivation of full global nuclear capacity between our Typhoon-class submarine, the Communist, and the nuclear-dipped tomahawks recently found in a Cuban port raid that were in crates labeled Dragon Dildos and Kakatana. At their behest, we sent an emissary to represent us to the UN and have set up a consulate in an old South Brooklyn hamburger shop previously owned by illegal Bangladeshi immigrants. They tried, but could not teach any of our contingent there how to successfully cook a hamburger without using a flamethrower or Molotov cocktails. For the moment, I've ordered our emissary to simply occupy that building and serve only fountain drinks and bottled liquor. Thanks to the diplomatic immunity, the emissary and his contingent proudly carried a full armament of Genkim-worthy full retard AKs, bubbled nuggets, and tactic-cooled ARs. Negotiations are underway to disarm, but are not expected to succeed. Still, being recognized as a nuclear power and accord full honors despite being a flotilla of overweight, unwashed, and sexually deprived neckbeards. Fishnet-wearing traps and alcoholic Eastern European/former Warsaw Pact expats that blather on drunkenly in their native languages, not actively shooting at something.